There comes a point in life when you stop asking, "Why am I so tired?" and start realizing the real answer. It's not always work, not always pressure, not always failure. Sometimes the exhaustion comes from the invisible things you carry every single day. The need to be accepted, the habit of delaying your life, the old pain you replay in silence, the constant chase for happiness somewhere in the future. Little by little, these patterns drain your peace without you even noticing. Most people never question them because they've become normal. They keep performing, explaining, comparing, overthinking, and calling it maturity. But Stoic philosophy teaches something different. Peace is not found by adding more to your life. It's found by removing what no longer belongs there. In this video, we'll explore the first 7 things you should quietly eliminate from your life if you want clarity, emotional freedom, and inner strength. Not through loud motivation, not through fake positivity, but through deep awareness of the habits, beliefs, and emotional patterns silently stealing your energy every day. Because sometimes growth doesn't begin with becoming someone new. It begins with finally letting go of what's been destroying you in silence. Section 1. The mask you wear for approval. One of the quietest forms of suffering is pretending to be someone you're not, just to feel accepted. It starts early. You learn which version of yourself gets praised, which emotions make people uncomfortable, which opinions keep the peace. So you adjust. You soften your truth. You become agreeable, available, easy to manage. And after doing it long enough, the performance becomes automatic. You smile when you feel exhausted. You say yes when your mind is screaming no. You shape your personality around what keeps people comfortable, hoping that if everyone approves of you, you'll finally feel worthy. But approval is a moving target. No matter how much you sacrifice yourself, it's never enough. Someone will still misunderstand you. Someone will still leave. Someone will still expect more. And slowly, the mask becomes heavier than the rejection you were trying to avoid. Stoic philosophy reminds us that peace begins the moment you stop outsourcing your value to other people's opinions. Because the more you perform for acceptance, the further you drift from yourself. You stop asking what feels true and start asking what will be tolerated. That's not freedom, that's emotional survival. Real strength appears when you no longer need applause to feel secure, when you can sit with disapproval without collapsing into self-doubt, when your identity is no longer built on pleasing everyone around you. Not everyone will understand the real you. Some people only liked the version of you that made their life easier. But the moment you stop performing, something powerful happens. You finally breathe like someone who no longer needs permission to exist. Section 2. The excuse called tomorrow. There's a dangerous habit that destroys more dreams than failure ever will. It's the belief that there will always be more time to start, more time to heal, more time to become the person you keep imagining in your head. So you postpone your life in small ways that feel harmless. You tell yourself you'll begin once you feel confident, once life calms down, once the fear disappears. But fear rarely disappears before action. Most of the time, action is what dissolves the fear. The problem with tomorrow is that it creates the illusion of progress without requiring any change. It comforts you just enough to stay stuck. Days become months, months become years. And one morning you realize you've spent more time thinking about life than actually living it. Stoic philosophy teaches that time is the most valuable thing you own, because once it leaves, it never returns. Yet people waste entire seasons waiting for certainty, waiting to feel ready, waiting for motivation to magically arrive. But life doesn't reward endless preparation, it rewards movement. The truth is, there will never be a perfect moment to change your life. The conditions will never feel completely safe. your mind will always find another reason to delay, another excuse to remain where it's familiar. And that's how people slowly abandon their potential without even noticing. Not through one dramatic decision, but through repeated hesitation. Every meaningful transformation begins the same way, uncomfortably, imperfectly, before you feel prepared. So, stop negotiating with your future. Stop treating your purpose like something you can revisit later, because later is a promise nobody was guaranteed. And one day, the pain of staying the same becomes heavier than the fear of beginning. Section 3. The looping tape of the past. Some people left the past years ago physically, but mentally, they still live there every day. They replay old conversations while driving alone. They relive betrayals before falling asleep. They reopen wounds that already had a chance to heal. And, without realizing it, they allow moments that no longer exist to control the way they think, feel, and move through life. The mind becomes trapped in repetition. What if I said something different? What if they never hurt me? What if I had another chance? But the past does not change because you revisit it emotionally. It only grows heavier. Stoic philosophy teaches that suffering intensifies when we resist reality instead of accepting it. The event already happened. The chapter already ended. Yet many people continue carrying pain long after the moment itself has disappeared. Not because they want to suffer, but because pain can become familiar. And familiar pain often feels safer than uncertain peace. So they hold on to resentment, like it gives them control. They replay memories, believing it protects them from being hurt again. But all it really does is steal their ability to fully live in the present. You cannot build a peaceful future while emotionally chained to a dead version of your life. Healing begins when you stop asking the past to become different, when you stop needing closure from people who already left, when you realize that constantly reopening old wounds is not loyalty to your pain, it's abandonment of your future. Some things will never make sense completely. Some apologies will never come. Some endings will always hurt. But peace arrives the moment you decide your future deserves more attention than your memories. Because your life cannot move forward while your mind keeps looking backward. Section 4. Emotional begging. There's a painful habit many people carry without realizing it. They beg emotionally for things that should be given freely. Attention, respect, reassurance, love. They constantly chase signs that they matter to someone who already treats them like an option. So, they over-explain, over-give, overstay. They keep trying to earn affection through sacrifice, hoping that if they become useful enough, patient enough, understanding enough, they'll finally be chosen. But love that must be begged for will always leave you exhausted. Stoic philosophy teaches that dignity begins where desperation ends. The moment your peace depends on someone else finally validating your worth, you hand them control over your emotional state. And people can feel that desperation, not always consciously but energetically. The more tightly you hold on, the more unstable everything becomes. You start abandoning yourself just to avoid abandonment from others. You tolerate mixed signals. You excuse disrespect. You accept crumbs because part of you fears being alone more than being emotionally drained. But there comes a moment where you must ask yourself a difficult question. Why are you fighting so hard to stay where you are, not deeply valued? Real connection does not require emotional chasing. Real love does not force you to constantly prove your worth. The right people will not make you beg for basic care, honesty, or presence. And the moment you stop pleading for what should come naturally, you recover something far more valuable than attention. You recover your self-respect. Because peace begins when you stop forcing relationships that continuously require you to betray yourself just to keep them alive. Section 5. Imaginary catastrophes. Most suffering never actually happens in reality. It happens in the mind. People spend hours imagining conversations that never occur, disasters that never arrive, rejection that never happens. Their body sits safely in a quiet room, while their thoughts create chaos, powerful enough to drain all peace from the present moment. The mind becomes addicted to worst-case scenarios. What if everything falls apart? What if I fail? What if they leave? And slowly, imagined pain starts feeling more real than reality itself. Stoic philosophy teaches that fear often comes not from life, but from the stories we attach to life. The event itself is usually smaller than the mental storm surrounding it. Yet many people rehearse tragedy every day as if anxiety can somehow prepare them for suffering. But constant fear does not protect you. It only steals the energy you need to actually live. You begin approaching life defensively instead of openly. You hesitate before opportunities. You overanalyze simple situations. Your nervous system stays tense, even during peaceful moments, because your mind is always scanning for danger. And eventually, you stop experiencing life directly. You experience your predictions about life. The tragedy is that most imagined catastrophes never arrive, but the stress they create still damages your body, your relationships, and your sense of calm. There is wisdom in preparation, but there is destruction in obsession. Not every uncertainty is a warning sign. Not every silence means abandonment. Not every mistake becomes disaster. Sometimes the mind creates fear simply because it has forgotten how to feel safe. And healing begins when you stop treating every unknown moment like an approaching collapse. Because peace is not found in controlling the future. It's found in learning how to remain grounded even when the future is unclear. Section 6. Silent grudges. Some people carry resentment so quietly that no one around them notices it. They smile, they continue their routines, they act normal on the surface. But deep inside, they are still emotionally tied to moments that hurt them years ago. An old betrayal, an old humiliation, an old disappointment they never truly released. And over time, that resentment hardens, not loudly, but silently. It changes the way they trust, the way they love, the way they respond to the world. They become emotionally guarded without even realizing why. Stoic philosophy teaches that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting someone else to suffer from it, because resentment rarely hurts the person who caused the pain. It slowly destroys the person carrying it. The mind keeps replaying the injustice, hoping the past will somehow feel fair one day. But fairness is not guaranteed in life. Some people will never apologize. Some wounds will never receive closure. And that reality is painful. But continuing to carry the bitterness does not undo the damage. It only extends it. Many people mistake resentment for strength because letting go feels like surrender. But forgiveness is not pretending something was acceptable. It is choosing not to remain emotionally chained to it forever. You can remember what happened without allowing it to define your future. You can protect yourself without becoming consumed by hatred. Because eventually, resentment stops being connected to the original event. It becomes part of your identity. A permanent emotional weight you carry into every room, every relationship, every thought. And the longer you hold on to it, the more peace quietly disappears from your life. Freedom begins when you finally decide that your future deserves more energy than your anger does. Section 7. The fake finish line, called happiness. Most people spend their entire lives chasing a version of happiness that never truly arrives. They believe peace exists somewhere ahead of them. In the next relationship, the next paycheck, the next achievement, the next version of themselves. So they keep running. They tell themselves, once I finally get there, then I'll relax. Then I'll feel complete. But the destination keeps moving. Every milestone creates another expectation. Every achievement loses its emotional weight faster than they imagined. And instead of feeling fulfilled, they feel strangely empty, wondering why success still hasn't brought them the peace they were promised. Stoic philosophy teaches that happiness was never meant to be a reward waiting at the end of suffering. It was meant to exist inside the way you live each ordinary day. Because if your mind is constantly trapped in the future, you become blind to the life already happening around you. You miss the quiet moments, the conversations that feel real, the mornings that arrive gently, the small victories nobody applauds. You keep waiting for life to begin while life is already passing through your hands. The dangerous part is that modern culture constantly reinforces this illusion. It teaches you to measure your worth by productivity, status, appearance, and comparison. So even when your life improves, your mind stays restless, always chasing, always lacking, always needing more. But peace begins when you stop treating happiness like a finish line and start seeing it as a daily practice. Not perfection, not achievement, presence. Because the people who feel most alive are not always the ones with the most. They are the ones who finally learned how to stop running long enough to appreciate what already exists. Most people think transformation happens through dramatic moments, a breakthrough, a perfect plan, a sudden reinvention. But real change usually happens much quieter than that. It begins the moment you stop feeding the habits, thoughts, and emotional patterns that have been draining your spirit for years. The need for approval, the constant delay, the attachment to old pain, the addiction to fear, the silent resentment, the endless chase for happiness somewhere outside yourself. These things don't destroy your peace overnight. They do it slowly, silently, one thought at a time. And Stoic philosophy reminds us that freedom is not about controlling the world around you. It's about mastering what lives within you. Your reactions, your attachments, your habits, your inner world. If even one of these 7 lessons spoke to you, don't ignore it. Awareness is often the beginning of transformation. Because the life you want is not built only through what you add. Sometimes it's built through what you finally decide to release. And this is only the first part. In the next video, we'll explore the remaining 8 things you should quietly eliminate from your life, including over-explaining yourself, comparing your life online, people-pleasing, fear of starting over, and the hidden habits that slowly destroy your energy and identity without you realizing it. Until then, take a breath. Observe your mind carefully. And remember this: peace does not come from becoming someone else. It comes from returning to who you were before the world taught you to abandon yourself.